You see, there is a peculiar kind of kindness that turns into cruelty when misunderstood, a softness that corrodes both the giver and the receiver. We call it helping. But in truth, what most people mean when they say, "I'm helping," is that they're trying to fix another person, as if they were a broken clock or a faulty machine. Yet the human being is not an object to be mended, nor a project to be completed. We are each a mystery unfolding, not a malfunction to be repaired. Now let me tell you something that may sound rather harsh at first. There are people you must never help, not because they are undeserving, but because in trying to save them, you lose yourself, and worse, you rob them of the very struggle that might awaken their own strength. There are 6 such kinds of people, and understanding them, truly understanding them, will spare you endless suffering disguised as compassion. The first, the one who demands but never learns. There are those who do not seek wisdom but attention. They come to you in the posture of the helpless, always in need, always in crisis. Yet if you observe closely, their crisis never ends. It simply changes costumes. One day it is heartbreak, the next it is money, the next it is meaning. Their song remains the same: save me. But if you try to rescue them, you'll find yourself cast in a play that never ends. You'll play the hero, they'll play the victim, and together you'll keep the drama alive. They do not want your light, they want your energy to fuel their own shadow. If you offer them a ladder, they will ask you to climb it for them. If you give them a map, they'll say the road is too long, and so you begin to notice something strange. The more you give, the less they grow. Because to learn, one must be willing to fall. And they have built their whole identity around being caught. You cannot help this kind of person because what they truly crave is not healing but control. They want to bind you in the endless performance of their pain. The compassionate thing, the wise thing, is to let them fall. Not out of cruelty, but out of respect for life's own intelligence. For the universe has a way of teaching through the very pain we try so hard to avoid. If you shield them from it, you interrupt their evolution. The second, the one who refuses to see. Have you ever spoken to someone who lives inside a story so thick that even truth cannot reach them? They might nod at your words, even smile politely, but behind their eyes, nothing moves. They are enclosed within the fortress of their own conviction. These are the people who do not seek clarity, only confirmation. And if you try to help them see, they'll brand you an enemy for threatening their illusion. They do not want light because light reveals the dust they have carefully hidden. To such people, advice is an intrusion. They will twist your words into weapons, not out of malice, but because reality itself feels like an attack when one is deeply asleep. Now, this is not to judge them. We all live in dreams of one kind or another. But to waste your breath on those who are determined to remain blind, that is like shouting at the wind. You'll exhaust yourself, and the wind will still blow. Sometimes the most compassionate act is silence, to let life itself be the teacher, because the universe has a patient way of awakening even the stubborn soul, through consequence, through loss, through time. The third, the perpetual martyr. Then there are those who wear their suffering as a badge of honor, the martyrs of misery. They believe that being unhappy makes them profound. They cling to pain because it gives them identity, as if joy were too ordinary a state for one who has suffered so much. If you try to lift them, they'll resist, because secretly they love their cross. Their suffering gives them a sense of purpose, and if you take it away, they no longer know who they are. Helping such a person is like trying to free a prisoner who insists that the bars are beautiful. You open the gate, but they won't leave, because outside the prison there's nothing to complain about, and complaining has become their religion. So you must let them worship their sorrow until they tire of it. Only when the weight of their own suffering becomes unbearable will they step into the sunlight voluntarily. Until then, your help will only strengthen their cage. The world, you see, is full of noble rescuers and professional victims. They depend on each other to stay alive, like actors who can't perform without their co-star. Once you understand this dance, you can bow gracefully and step off the stage. The fourth, the one who fears freedom. This is perhaps the most tragic of all, the person who asks for help but recoils when given it. They say they want change, yet every step toward it terrifies them. They cling to their chains, polishing them until they shine like jewelry. Freedom to them feels like falling. Why? Because with freedom comes responsibility. And responsibility means no one left to blame. These are the ones who will always find a reason why your advice won't work, why the timing isn't right, why fate is unfair. They seek rescue, not realization. They want the illusion of transformation without the effort of awakening. You might show them the open sky, but they'll still choose the cage, for the cage is familiar, and the familiar, even when painful, it feels safe. The danger of helping such a person is that their fear will become contagious. You'll start doubting your own wings. You'll stay grounded, waiting for them to be ready, but they never will be. You'll both grow roots instead of flight. So let them remain where they are until their longing for freedom outweighs their fear of it. That is the moment of true readiness, not before. You see, real compassion is not indulgence, it is understanding. It is the wisdom to see when your helping hand becomes a chain around someone's neck or around your own. When you can walk away, not in anger but in peace, you begin to see that the universe doesn't need your interference to heal its own creations. Everything and everyone is moving toward awakening, in their own strange, beautiful, often painful way. The lotus blooms from mud, not from pity. The fifth, the emotional vampire. Now we come to one of life's most exhausting companions, the one who feeds not on your help, but on your attention. You'll know them by the way you feel after being in their company, drained, heavy, and somehow smaller than before. These are the people who draw energy from drama. They survive on the emotional current of others because they have lost connection to their own source. Like a lamp unplugged from the wall, they seek any outlet to keep glowing, and you become that outlet. At first you mistake it for friendship, for empathy. They confide in you, flatter you, depend on you. You feel needed, which is always a pleasant trap. But soon you notice that nothing ever changes. Their stories repeat, their crises multiply, and somehow you are always at the center of it, expected to listen, to soothe, to fix. You begin to sense that they don't want peace. Peace would put them out of business, for without turmoil, who would pay them attention? And this is the dangerous illusion. We confuse exhaustion with compassion. We think that to be loving is to be endlessly available. But love, in its true form, is not servitude. It is clarity. The kindest thing you can do for an emotional vampire is to stop feeding them. Withdraw your energy without anger and watch how they flail. For when the spotlight of your attention fades, they must finally meet the darkness within themselves and perhaps for the first time learn to light their own candle. It is not cruelty to refuse to be drained. It is self-respect, and that too is sacred. The sixth, the manipulator of guilt, and lastly, the most cunning of all, the one who turns your goodness into a weapon against you. They know precisely how to make you feel responsible for their unhappiness. "Oh, I thought you cared about me," they'll say, "after everything I've done for you." They twist your empathy like a rope, looping it around your neck. And before you know it, you are apologizing for things you never did, giving what you cannot afford, staying where you no longer belong. This kind of person does not seek your help. They seek your compliance. They do not want love. They want leverage. They thrive on guilt because guilt makes you predictable. Once you feel responsible for their emotions, you become a puppet dancing on invisible strings. But here is the truth. You are not responsible for anyone's inner weather. You can offer shelter, but you cannot stop the rain. You can give warmth, but you cannot banish another's winter. To see this clearly is to reclaim your freedom, and paradoxically it is also to give them theirs, for as long as you enable their manipulation, you are both bound in illusion. When you stop playing their game, they are forced to face the truth of their own making. Sometimes walking away is the highest form of compassion, because it says, "I will not help you destroy yourself, and I will not destroy myself to save you." Now, you may ask, but isn't that selfish? Isn't the whole point of love to give, to help, to sacrifice? But love is not sacrifice. Love is clarity. Love sees what truly nourishes and what only feeds illusion. To help someone in a way that makes them smaller is not love. To carry someone so they never learn to walk is not love. To silence your own heart so another may avoid hearing theirs. That is not love either. Love, you see, does not coddle weakness. It awakens strength. It does not protect people from life. It points them back into life, where the real lessons wait. And so when I say there are 6 kinds of people you must not help, I do not mean abandon all compassion. I mean refine it, sharpen it until it cuts through pretense and leaves only truth. Because the truth is this: many who seek your help do not actually want to change. They want you to confirm their story. They want to stay asleep, and they want you to tuck them in. But consciousness, my friend, is not a lullaby. It is a thunderclap. It shakes, it breaks, it awakens. And that is why so few truly seek it. The art of letting life help them instead. You must learn to trust the intelligence of life itself, for it is the greatest teacher of all. What you cannot say to them gently, life will shout through experience. What you cannot show with words, time will reveal through loss, through wonder, through failure. And perhaps that is the greatest act of compassion you can offer, to let life do its sacred work without interference. When you refuse to save someone prematurely, you give them the chance to awaken through the natural rhythm of their own lessons. You may not see it, but your silence becomes a mirror in which they glimpse themselves clearly for the first time. Your absence becomes space, space in which something divine may finally move. It takes courage to stand by and allow others to struggle. The ego loves to be the hero. It loves the idea of being the one who helped. But the soul knows better. The soul understands that each being must meet their own darkness and find their own light. You cannot walk another's path without abandoning your own. So when you find yourself tempted to fix, to save, to carry, pause. Ask yourself, am I helping because they truly need it, or because I need to feel needed? You will find that much of what we call altruism is simply disguised fear. Fear of being useless, unloved, or unseen. But when you help from fear, your help becomes poison. When you help from clarity, it becomes grace. So learn to discern. Watch who draws from your well, and whether they ever learn to dig their own. These 6 people, the demanding, the blind, the martyr, the fearful, the draining, and the manipulative, are not your enemies. They are mirrors, showing you where your compassion ends and your self-awareness must begin. Do not hate them, do not pity them, simply understand them and let them be. For once you stop rescuing everyone, you discover something profound. The world does not collapse without your saving hand. It continues, as it always has, in perfect paradoxical harmony, a play of souls learning through contrast. And sometimes the greatest help is no help at all. There is an old Zen saying, "Don't remove another's pebble from their shoe unless they ask you to walk in it." It means that pain, discomfort, confusion, all of it, are part of the curriculum of life. Each of us has a syllabus written in invisible ink, and the only way to read it is through experience. But we live in a time where everyone wants to skip the lessons. We try to rescue others from their suffering before they've learned what it came to teach them. And in doing so, we interfere with life's alchemy, the mysterious process by which suffering becomes wisdom. You cannot hatch a bird by breaking its shell for it. You cannot help a butterfly by opening its cocoon early. What you call help is often a kind of violence, a refusal to let things unfold in their natural order. True compassion is patient. It doesn't rush in with answers. It sits quietly by the river and knows that every current, no matter how turbulent, is flowing exactly where it must. Helping and ego are often the same thing wearing different masks. We must talk about ego because the ego is clever. It can disguise itself as goodness, as generosity, even as love. When you say, "I'm helping them because I care," pause and ask, do you care or do you need to feel important? The ego loves the role of the savior because it makes it indispensable. It thrives on the idea that without me they will fall apart. It whispers, "You are the light in their darkness." But here's the paradox. The more you play savior, the more you confirm their helplessness. You make them dependent on your light, and they never learn to find their own. The world doesn't need more rescuers, it needs more awakeners, people who, instead of carrying others, remind them they can walk, people who, instead of shouting directions, quietly trust that the lost will eventually find their own way. And if you want to help, truly help, be like a lighthouse. You don't chase ships into the storm, you stand still, shining, unbothered by who sees you or who doesn't. The hidden wisdom of letting go. It takes maturity to let people struggle, because our hearts ache when we see others in pain, especially those we love. We want to reach in and rearrange their fate to protect them from consequence. But consequence is the only teacher some souls will listen to. To step back is not to stop loving, it is to love wisely. Imagine a parent who keeps tying their child's shoes forever. At first it's kindness, but soon it becomes crippling. The child never learns balance, never learns patience. What began as love becomes limitation. So it is with adults too. We tie each other's emotional shoes long past the age of necessity. We solve, explain, comfort, advise, all in the name of love. But love that suffocates growth is not love. It's attachment dressed in virtue. Letting go does not mean closing your heart. It means keeping it open without trying to control what flows in or out. It means standing at the riverbank of life and saying, "Go on, find your way." Why the wise do not rescue. When you begin to understand the deeper rhythm of life, you see that everyone must meet their own mirror. You cannot take their test. You cannot pay their karmic debts. You cannot awaken on their behalf. And so the wise do not rescue. They guide when asked, but never impose. They know that suffering is not always a sign of failure. Sometimes it is the furnace in which strength is forged. When the Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, no one pulled him out of the storm of his mind. When Christ faced his inner desert, no one came to shorten the 40 days. Every awakening is solitary, not lonely, but solitary. The wise understand this, and therefore their love feels strangely spacious. They allow others to fall, to fail, to flail. They do not interfere with the dance of cause and effect. And because of that, their help, when it is offered, carries the power of true grace, the subtle art of compassionate distance. You might ask, but what do I do when someone close to me is drowning? You stand at the edge of the shore and keep your eyes open. You do not dive in unless they reach for your hand with the willingness to swim. You let them see that you are there, calm, present, anchored. That in itself becomes the medicine, because your calmness says you are capable of finding your rhythm again. This is what I call compassionate distance, the space between interference and indifference. It is the art of loving without losing yourself, of caring without controlling. When you master that, you stop playing God in people's stories. You stop trying to rewrite their chapters. Instead, you honor the author within them, the deeper intelligence that writes every fall and every rise with precision beyond your comprehension. The universe does not waste a wound. Every wound has wisdom folded inside it, like a secret note hidden in a sealed envelope. You cannot read the message until the envelope is opened, and pain is the knife that opens it. So when you see someone bleeding from their own lesson, do not rush to close the wound before the wisdom has entered. Let them feel what life is teaching. Let the rain soak them. Let the night stretch long enough for the dawn to mean something. The universe wastes nothing, not a tear, not a failure, not a heartbreak. Everything belongs, everything instructs. And when you try to shield people from the natural discomfort of being human, you interrupt the process by which souls mature. So instead of trying to fix others, trust that life itself is already doing the fixing. You are not the mechanic of other people's destinies. You are, at best, a witness. Your real task is inner help. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot help the world while you are tangled in your own illusions. The real work begins inward. The 6 dangerous people you must not help. They also live inside you. There is a part of you that demands but never learns, a part that refuses to see, a part that clings to pain and calls it purpose, a part that fears its own freedom, a part that drains others, and a part that manipulates through guilt. You cannot help them out there until you have met them in here, within your own heart. The outer world is merely a reflection of the inner one. When you stop rescuing your own illusions, you stop rescuing others as well. You become still, clear, untangled, and from that clarity, your presence alone becomes healing, not because you do anything, but because you are something. A silent reminder that peace is possible, the final understanding. So, my friend, remember this: not everyone who cries for help truly wants it. Not everyone who appears lost is meant to be found, when at least not yet. Do not confuse interference with love. Do not mistake attachment for compassion. Help those who are ready to walk, not those who insist on being carried. Speak truth when it can be heard, not when it can only be resisted. And above all, protect the sanctity of your own peace. Because your peace, not your pity, is what the world truly needs. You do not serve the drowning by drowning with them. You serve them by learning how to float, and by showing, through your being, that calm is possible even amid the waves. That is real help. So the next time you feel the pull to save, pause, breathe, see clearly. And then, instead of reaching out in pity, bow inward in understanding. Trust that life, vast, intelligent, mysterious life, knows exactly what it's doing. For in the end, every soul must walk its own road home, and the highest love you can give is to let them.